G'day investors and welcome to another episode of Stocks to Watch. My name's John Franklin, an experienced exploration geo and your host. Today we're taking a look at Sidney Resources, which is a US-based exploration company turning towards developer focused on gold, silver, rare earth elements and even PGMs, mainly in Idaho. So I'm joined today by the CEO, Sean-Rae Zalewski, and the CEO and Treasurer, Dan Hally. Welcome to the show, lads.
Hi, thanks. Glad to be here.
John.
It's good to be talking to you. Yeah, we had a bit of a chat off camera before, and this is a very exciting project. But the main thing I wanted to focus on today was that we've seen on forums and a few different areas. There's a bunch of shareholder questions that seem to come up on a regular basis. So if we can hit them and you can answer them, then I'm sure everyone viewing will be happy. So first one off the bat is also many shareholders are asking if you've got high grade material basically on your stockpiles or in shallow resources, where are the gold bars? So
before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Did you want to take that one, Dan?
Oh, yeah, sure. I ask myself that every morning. Why no gold bar yet? We look at it. But one of the things that I really wanted to just take a minute and explain is assays, which, a lot of the people following us now, they hear that all the time. Assays, what they are is they paint a picture of what is contained in the material we're working with, the ore or the rock, whatever you want to call it. And we have those high grade assays. We've had multiple labs show multi-ounce. Particularly early on, we were just focused on the silver and gold because of the history. So we have those assays. What assays don't do is assays don't show you how to recover the material. And when we, a couple of years ago, when I was positive, I was certain, based on what I understood about the area and the assays, we would have gold and silver bars. And we did some smelter tests and we ended up with a bar. The problem was the bar contained osmium, iridium, gold, platinum, palladium, and all these different metals that were alloyed. You couldn't send it to a refinery. So you're producing a bar, but you can't do anything with it. And we found that particular bar, and we made several of them. They can't go to a refinery. So that's where we've, spent so much time understanding how to separate what's the metallurgy, how do we process it, what chemicals are used in the process, what are the grind studies. And so that's being done, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating for us, and it's frustrating for the shareholders. And, I take a lot of responsibility because I provide the information from Sean that comes from our contractors, and I evaluate that. And based on, the information that's available, we did believe we were going to be there. So we'll get there. We'll get there. The gold hasn't left. The platinum, the group metals haven't left. The rare earths haven't left. But to put things in perspective, just so people understand, it's a process and it's complex. You look at Barrick Gold, they're the big gold strike mine in Nevada. It took time. They knew they had it, and they had everybody saying, no, it's not. There's no, you can't be because you said it was, and you're not producing gold bars yet. What's one of the largest gold mines in the U.S., if not? Yeah. You look at Idaho's mine, their big copper project, same thing. They said we've got high grade copper, and everybody's like, why aren't you producing? It took time to get there. Same thing with the Stillwater mine. They're PGMs, they deal with the complexity. Everybody said it's not possible. They knew it because they could see it in their assays. So it just takes time. But that's why we don't have the gold bars yet. We have the assays are correct. The metal's there, the material's there. We just have to unlock the process so that it can then go to a refinery. And we're working, it's not just us working on this, we're working with other labs that specialize in the platinum groups. We talked off camera a little bit about the osmium and some of the compounding factors, but that's really why we don't have the gold bars. it's just taking a lot longer than we anticipated because we found things that we didn't anticipate. And we're overcoming those challenges, and we're committed to doing it the right way.
I guess it depends how you look at it as well. Like it could be problematic in the short term, but very positive in the long term, because once you get through this metallurgical process, you'll actually be able to get more out of the same rock than just the gold and silver. So I guess that was a great answer. It makes a lot more sense as to why things are taking a bit longer, but there could be further upside in the future.
And Sean, did you want to add anything to that?
Sure. There are two sides of it, so that's been a consistent, statement from the ops team that we're going to have this at X date. So I've reported what I get told, right? So I trust my team. They work very hard. They do incredible work in very difficult conditions. Western Frontier's been incredible. Dan's been literally living on mountains in the winter to make sure this project moves forward. So we recognize that. And there is a certain level of frustration from my side, in July when I make a statement that we're going to have gold bars by X date. We believe we'd have that. The ops teams thought they'd have that in July, and we gave ourselves some lead time for that because of material they were processing in basically free milling gold. So they thought they'd have volume of that. And as they entered that stope, there was a fracture in the vein. So it shifted. So that causes a delay. There's a lot to this. So it isn't misrepresentation of where we are. It's we believe this is going to be contiguous, and then there's a fracture, and it's several yards over or several meters over in rock space in a granite-based basalt. It's a very difficult project to shift. So you got to shift we had to shift the angle that we were approaching that by several hundred feet and go back in and stope that. That takes a lot of time, effort, and Western Frontier did a great job of reapproaching that stope, right? They did that in 9 days. I think it took them to reapproach the stope angle and vein, which is incredible. So we're on vein, we're drifting, we're processing, and materially, we have 3 paths to success. In those paths, we have gold and silver, gold, silver, platinum group, osmium, et cetera, iridium, palladium, and then we have rare earths. So we have such a rich density of assets that it's very short-sighted to say, oh, we need this tomorrow. We're well-funded. I'm very well networked. Individuals like Alex, your boss, and all these other people are very well connected with my groups, right? Like, we've raised a lot of money for the company, and we can do that in the future if we need to. We're very mindful of dilution. We have capital in the bank. We did a great raise last year of $8.5 million. We're still fully funded. We have no issues. So while we want to get to revenue, because that is the next step, we're not holding, anybody hostage to make sure that this happens too fast where we miss out on an asset. So within that spectrum as well, you've got the separations happening concurrently. So we're working on gold and silver separation. We're working on polymetallic separation with the platinum group's gold and rare earths together. And the huge press release that came out, which fell a little bit on deaf ears, I think, because perhaps we didn't state it clearly enough. We were given instruction by a large group in America to achieve a 30% concentration in rare earths. So that rare earth concentrate separates the majority of the other assets and creates 30% of what that group desires. So now that we achieved that, we're right on the edge of that offtake agreement to be funded through that as well. So we have, in the offtake world, you don't just say, I have it, and they give you a check. They now they've reached this concentration level, they have to check it with their group. And that group is in, their key persons are on other continents often, right? So they're working globally as well. So they're working with various sensitive things that I can't talk about in other continents, and they come back. So their lead geologists, their lead metallurgists are not in the nation. Dan spent 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, or 3 weeks ago, he spent 3 days driving 30 hours to meet that group in a state at their headquarters and their mine site, and then drove to meet with the Secretary of Energy and his team with that group in another state, right? To make sure that we are staying congruent, and their executives and team guided that process forward and are working with us. This isn't I hope we get this. This is, we are working with the decision makers to do these things. These are the presidents. These are the lead people in their positions. We're not trying to get attention. So within that group, we have this great opportunity to move forward. Our densities are the best in the nation at this point. So we're not only saying trust our lab, we sent it to Hazen. We've had 3 calls with Hazen Labs to make sure that we package the material properly, we send it properly. They have all of the other assays and data sets we have because we're not trying to test them. We're trying to collaborate with each of these parties to create a better system and a better product. So why hold back information? There's a weird thing in mining where people don't share information and want to make sure that they can achieve that on their own. I think that's foolish and short-sighted, and it slows down the process. So we're doing these things to move forward very well and very quickly. And we are demonstrating that we have achieved that product that they want. So the next step is just negotiations on how this works together. Is it a joint venture? Is it an offtake agreement? Is it some other collaborative environment or structure? We'll see what that is. But I'm very familiar with this world. This is what I live and breathe and is structure. So my other investors that have invested in other companies with me know that I will invest in a capacity and structure that investment to win for my team. So we'll continue to do that. And as we move forward, we have other opportunities. We just got great information back on our laser that our patent was challenged, and we went through that and it was still approved, and we still sit on that. We have conversations with other groups on that off-world capability and on-world capability relatively frequently. And unfortunately, some people don't play well in that sandbox and they try to steal our technology, right? It's still a valuable technology. So the corporate game is far more nuanced than a few tweets out there saying this is what you should be doing because I read about it on Grok. Like, that's not how the world works. There's a lot more to business than the superficial aspects some people believe they know. So we're doing a very good job. The company's moving forward incredibly well. We're working with consultants on the SEC registration side. We're doing all the pieces correctly, but we can't uplist without revenue. So we know that this is the fight to validity, fight to being undeniable, and that flight will lead us upward, right? And as we move forward towards that, we'll continue to have those conversations. I just had a conversation with the CEO for about 45 minutes the other night about what should we work together to uplist, right? Because if both of our companies are together, we're bigger. Is that merger attractive? I have conversations like that weekly. So we're always evaluating what is best for the corporation and how do we move forward to protect the shareholders' interests and make sure that this site succeeds long term. And in addition with that, a great boon for the validity of our asset is there's a very, very Googleable billionaire that just moved in next door. Thomas Kaplan doesn't do things short-sighted. So going through that, he has gone in and claimed 400 acres and then surrounded it with 4,000 acres of staggered claims. You don't do that with his asset base without wanting or working hard, right? There's value here. So that group and their refineries being upgraded to handle other aspects other than silver, this is a very, very important movement in the region, and it validates what we're doing. And I said when we did the expansion early this year, we did this quietly and defensively because eventually other people are going to move in. So we claimed the 4,000 acres, and we're continuing to evaluate exploration targets around us, and we'll continue to do that. But that just lends credence to the incredible value of the area. Interestingly, that group also claimed acreage 3 days before it was due to renew, which means it was worth it to pay their claims fees twice in 6 days. Not often that people do that, right? Must have had some pretty compelling data to go ahead and pay your claims fees twice in the middle of nowhere, Idaho. So I'm really excited where we are. And, as a summary, we're moving forward, and we're moving forward in a compelling fashion. So within that spectra as well, we have this analogy on the street that I keep hearing that you alluded to. Why don't you just sell what you have, right? Why don't you just sell that bar and get your revenue now because I want my stock to go up today as opposed to the long-term benefit to the corporation. In the better judgment rule or business judgment rule, my job is to act in the best interest of the shareholders and business at all times. I'm also a shareholder, so is Dan. So we have aligned interest with our shareholders. We're not just being paid a salary to sit here and hope it works. It is material to our families and our futures that this realizes its potential. So with that, we could do some things and try to get $1,000 a ton or $2,000 a ton at low-hanging fruit, if you will. And maybe we could do that. But Warren Buffett, and I've posted this video, has an analogy where if you look at an asset and is having one in your hand better than two in the bush, all you have to look at is he can answer that with the time value of money calculation. How long will it take to get there? And what is my rate of return, right? So if I have an asset that's $2,000 or I have an asset that's $70,000 or $110,000, well, it's a pretty easy calculation to know that I need a huge ROI to get that delta, right? To get that difference is gargantuan. So as we build this, we have so many opportunities for revenue, so many opportunities for joint venture, and so much going on nationally in this space, in the critical mineral space, that I'm just very excited to be where we are and continue to collaborate in the space.
All right, there was a lot packed into that answer, that's for sure. But it was all extremely. So it sounds like one, you're well funded from recent raisings and obviously the connections around that. You've got some people in your data room doing some due diligence at the moment, so there's potential for some maybe JV or even just collaboration in some way. But you did mention before the fact that revenue is going to be the validifying factor for the company as you progress from kind of explorer through to developer and obviously producer. So if I could kind of target in on that and just say what are the key milestones or what's the strategy required that's going to get you to revenue and what's the realistic timeline?
Yeah, so we're still targeting Q4. That hasn't changed from our conversation this summer. We still believe that we're there through multiple paths. We had a hiccup on a shift in a vein, which causes some delays, but it's still being milled. We're still crushing. We're still grinding, and we've achieved a concentrate level for an offtake agreement that was desired by the group. Right, so we're very excited to continue that. That could be revenue number one. It could be making gold bars or buttons, number one, or we could sell our concentrates overseas. I've had a constant conversation with several overseas corporations that are interested in that, right? There's strategic reasons why we wouldn't do that because they're not interested in the full suite, right? And then they kind of keep the rest. So to the shareholders' point, well, take the revenue, but you lose out 35-1. Maybe that's a good deal eventually. But right now we don't have to take that deal. Right. So we go through this and see which is the best path for shareholder value long term and both intermediate term. So we'll reach towards achieving revenue in Q4. To answer your question very directly, that is still the goal, whether that be through joint venture offtake or something to that effect, or sales of gold concentrates because we finally unlock that first key, or we move into the stope with free gold. So we'll continue all of those paths. Dan, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Well, I just think, and it's a goal, and that's what we're working to achieve. And there's a lot of factors that come in, with achieving that. But that's the information that we have. The companies that we're working with on offtakes, it's dependent on how fast they move. There's a lot of factors, but that's the piece people have to remember. We set these goals based on the information that we have, and we're working hard to achieve them. So, that's really the best that we can do. And that's why we say these are goals. I see, well, you guys promised. We didn't promise. We set a goal, and we work hard to achieve those. I just think that's important for the shareholders to understand.
Yeah, it is interesting to see the language. We're very precise. So we're targeting revenue. That is the target, right? Our goal is to reach that. We haven't declared that there is revenue. That there's a large difference in the security space between a declaration and a target. Our target is this because of known quantities and factors. We have a saleable asset from what our data suggests. We have made that concentration of the asset to the specifications of what we're instructed to do in a face-to-face meeting. We followed up with that with another face-to-face meeting and provided those samples to their group. And we are going through scrutiny with 6 separate labs to ensure that that is verified and validated. So we'll continue to do those aspects. But as another tangent of possibilities, a group that has nothing to do with any of the metals we've talked about so far, in the space for DoD reached out just because we have something published in our data room, right? So in our public technical reports, we have other metals listed because all our stuff is there. We just throw it all out there and you can look at it and poke holes in it. And they are a group that does things with this metal, right? But they're looking to do some structure changes to their company too. And we look like a nice target for them. And they have $50 million in cash. And concurrently, another group has $1 billion in cash in a press release they just put out. And they're looking for things to make them look better. So we have those constant conversations constantly. So to the people who are wondering, why aren't we replying to Twitter messages? Well, we're working, right? Like, sorry, we're here. We actually hired a group of people to run our Twitter and XAI, and put that out there so people can be informed. And we're marketing. Coca-Cola doesn't tell you every day that they have a new brand of Coca-Cola or this is going to happen. They tell you that this is what Coca-Cola does and it tastes good, feels great, whatever else. Enjoy the experience. So on the pushback that we're getting right now at that, these videos were released a few weeks ago and you're sharing a blurb of it. Yeah, it's marketing. That's how marketing works. You share your story and you share it again. Early to bed, early to rise, work like hell and advertise, right? Like that's one of those things that stuck with me. It's if people don't know who you are, they can't buy your stock. So we're attempting to reach out to broaden that base of investors because we have something that's incredibly compelling. We have what may be the most compelling and interesting asset in the world, right? So that has value. More people need to know it if our stock's going to go up. Our press release 2 weeks ago was not written for the average investor. I wrote it with other groups for CFAs because that's what's going to move the stock. It was written for technical analysis by CFAs and family offices so they could participate at significant levels in the future. This is a due diligence piece. It is not for the average investor to say, oh, I want to put $100 in your stock today, which what we appreciate, but our stock will not move to $4 on a $100 buy. It will move on $1 million buy. So that is the reason for that very technical analysis of our positions.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic answer. And it's hard. It's striking that balance as well between catering for everyone. So that's a,
and we did have pushback. Like, sorry, everybody, I understand it was technical. So we really released it in a very user-friendly one this week. That's, hey, on Tuesday, this is the plain and simple. This is what it is, guys. It's going really well. We made the thing that we said we were going to make, and a group wants to buy it. That's really cool, right? To break that down.
So another question that I saw in the kind of comment that was in forums was really, I don't want to say attacking, but it was questioning the shift towards the rare earth element focus rather than the gold, silver that it has been previously. So if you wanted to just kind of expand on that,
sure.
Why?
Yeah, I just think that's really, really funny, right? Like if I run a company, or the question is just, I understand it because one of my close shareholder friends who called me on that was worried about that same thing. And I had to laugh a little bit when I was on the phone with him because all this stuff, right? So we're looking at, we're excited about, somewhere between 27 and 400 parts per million of an asset, right? Wow, right? That's a lot of parts per million left over of other stuff, right? So if we've got an ounce of gold per ton or 27 parts per million, right? There's a lot of other stuff there. So in the re-release of that press release, we did state that asset was after we remove the precious metals and gold from that asset. So we still have that slurry of all the other heavy stuff, the magnetics and other pieces that are separated from that. That's in another bucket, right? So if you look back at our concentrates, the rare earths come back in Con 2, if you look back at all the assay sets. So on the table feed, then Con 1, Con 2, you find the rare earths settle in that second con in the gravity separation. And then we move the polymetallic material out through various gravitation spiral and really mostly gravity. So, and then some magnetic work. So move that out, and then you have this other stuff. The other stuff is still there, right? We're doing all of these things at the same time, and it's not a shift of we're only doing this now. We're just talking about it publicly while we do all the things. So we're concurrently working on gold and silver, platinum, group metals, and rare earths because they're all together and we're just separating them. The first one to separate in a concentrate that looks the most saleable right now is rare earths. The other pieces, they're still, I don't have the images in my background right now, but there's still dozens, 60, 70, 80 bags of concentrates that are a ton a piece, right? We have like tons and tons of concentrates. It's just about getting the right stuff out for each offtake agreement and that polymetallic engagement. And some people have asked, why don't we assay each one of those and do a full test on each assay bag or each concentrate bag, and then we can have either a feasibility study or a reserve group of that asset. Well, that's very expensive to do for everyone. One. And two, this is a very, very complex ore. It's not going to work that way, right? We do need to separate it out and build several things that do each piece, right? So there's going to be a rare earth separation line. Like if it's a factory, there'd be a rare earth line. So instead of building a Ford F-150 on that line and a Yukon or whatever else, or Ford thing that I'm getting wrong here, Expedition, they're not built on the same assembly line. So we'll do the separations on one side and then rerun it to get the next piece, right? But it's all the same ore. It's not we move to a separate mine. And it's one of the conversations we had even with a very knowledgeable team at a lab. They were like, oh, is this 5 mines, right? Are we getting this thing here and this thing here? No, this is Bain, right? This is the area we're on. And we have a lot of stuff. So it's super exciting because there's so much stuff, but it takes time. So we appreciate everybody's patience. But understand, we are looking to grant that huge yield to all members, right? We want this to succeed. And we only win if you guys win, right? The only way I win and I'm successful in this company is if every other shareholder is successful as well. I don't have some internal group that benefits more at this point or anything else. We're all common shareholders. All the preference shareholders convert to common shares at any liquefying event. Everybody participates pro rata in distributions. This hasn't been designed to have heavier voting for anybody. This is a very fair structure for all members involved.
Okay, yeah, again, a lot to unpack there, but I thought of the analogy we say down in Australia when something's just packed with a whole bunch of different metals and rare earths. We call it the kitchen sink, or
sure.
Everything goes. It definitely sounds like it's one of those situations, but yeah, I really like what you're saying there, whether it's worth taking that time, really figuring out this metallurgy, and there's going to be an exponential uplift in the value of it versus just pulling out what you can with the tech, with what you have right at the moment. So, yeah, I like that strategy. So, I mean, in wrapping up, either Dan or Sean, if you want to just give investors, firstly, where they can invest in your stock, and two, just why should they invest right now? What's the catalyst?
Sure, absolutely. So we are listed on OTCID SDRC, so Sidney Resources Corporation SDRC. We're very searchable on $SDRC or at Sidney SDRC Mining for X. I'm excited because we're on the edge of creating revenue, right? That's going to be the switch that proves that we are who we say we are. And as we do that, then all the other pieces open up. We can uplist to NYSE Texas or Texas Stock Exchange next year when it opens formally in all the pieces, or we can go to NASDAQ. We've been approached by several shells to go to various interesting things. So all those pieces have been worked on for months in the background. We're ready for those pieces. We seamlessly moved from OTC Pink as soon as OTCID worked because we have all independent directors. We don't have an overly concentrated owner. We have unique shareholders across the board. So we're on the edge of our exponential growth, as you stated, John. And we're right here, right? We're right on the edge, and we have all the data. The data is de-risked. So we're not saying, oh, if this happens, then we get to this event and then we can make concentrates. It's not like all the proposals I see every week of this mine saying you should buy us for $20 million because we have $100 billion in assets, according to this one or two assays. We took assays, we built a mill, we used that mill to figure out the separation and grind process to achieve a saleable material, which is being vetted by the offtake live in the rare earth space. And it was when we worked on that in the past with Germany for gold, they only wanted certain things and they didn't want the iridium and osmium. So when we started it, they were like, well, we don't want that. Right. So that fell on deaf ears, but this is different. We've already separated all those events from this. So we're right on the edge of saying, here you go. Here's as much of you as you want. We control nearly 4,000 acres regionally, and we'll look to expand that. So we can grow exponentially. We have private land. We're not bound by, BLM activities or forestry activities in the future. This is going to be incredible. Whether people are along for the ride or they say later, I wish I invested, it's going to be one of those two pieces. So I appreciate everybody's support to this point, but we're right on the edge of greatness.
I think that's a solid answer for investors. So yeah, well, it's been fantastic talking to both of you. Very exciting story, bit of a different story, but exciting nonetheless. And yeah, we look forward to hearing from you again soon.
Thank you, John.
You bet. Thanks, John. I know we weren't able to answer everyone's questions and different stuff like that, but we will over time. We're working on those. We're aware of them. So we appreciate the opportunity, and thank you again.
Thank you, John. We'll have to get Dr. Acosta on here with you next time. Have a little more fun in your field.
Yeah, yeah. We can really talk rocks then. Sounds great, guys. Okay.
Appreciate it.
See you later.
Thanks.